BBC Radio Cambridgeshire.
Oggi Tomic is alongside this afternoon, Cambridge-based filmmaker, cinematographer. Welcome to BBC Radio Cambridgeshire.
Thank you.
You have the most astonishing personal story and the most astonishing professional story to share with us as well this afternoon. Oggi joins us this week in a week where you found out that Finding Family, which we're going to talk about today, this film, has been nominated for something really rather fantastic, hasn't it?
Yes, it was a great shock to me and my family in Cambridge, as well as the director Chris Leslie, to find out that we've been nominated for BAFTA Scotland, which is being awarded. Well, we don't know if we won it yet, but the ceremony is next week, so hopefully it'll be nice to win something and be recognised, for the film.
Nice accolade, isn't it? Oh, it's more than nice. It's a wonderful accolade, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
This has also been noted at the Sarajevo Film Festival last year, at the Raindance and Sin Film Festival in Pakistan, at the Chicago Festival of Bosnian Herzegovina. I always struggle with that word. Yeah, that one too. Earlier on this year. You can tell perhaps from Oggi's accent that Oggi, whereas now living in Cambridge, is originally from Bosnia. We're going to talk about your early years out there, and what brought you to the UK and what brought you to making this film as well, because this is strong stuff this afternoon. We've got it all to come today. Giorgio Moroder, Phil Oakley, together in Electric Dreams here on BBC Radio Cambridgeshire. Music-wise today, you say we play 08459 25 2000. That's our number. We'll get the tunes on this afternoon at 1, shall we? In the way that we always do this lunchtime. If you're motivated by a piece of music, if you love a piece of music, if you feel that we don't play it nearly so often as we should, this is your opportunity to redress the balance, I suppose, and put it right. 08459 25 2000. That is our number. You'll get through to Nick today. 81333 on text. Do remember to put the word CAM, C-A-M, right at the beginning. It grabs it and it sends it our way. That's the reason why. Email is cams.afternoon@bbc.co.uk. Let's say good afternoon once again to Oggi Tomic, who's with us this afternoon, now resident in Cambridge. Been here for the last, coming up 5 years now, Oggi?
Yes.
Coming up 5 years.
In Cambridge, yes, in Cambridge.
And loving the city and the possibilities of the city.
It's great. It's fantastic. My friend, the director of the film, keeps making jokes about me living in Cambridge, but I'll just leave him to it. But I love the place, love the buzz, the possibilities, and just generally, it's a place where you could almost make it or break it, so to speak. So I like it a lot.
A bit like New York.
Well, I've never been there, so...
If you make it there, you can make it anywhere.
Yes.
Don't they say that? And Cambridge is similar in that respect. Let's introduce you properly. You are a filmmaker. You're a cinematographer. You're also the adopted son of a Cambridge couple.
Actually, sorry, it's a mother, Anne George, and her son William George. So they're not a couple, mother and son.
Okay.
who own the business of language school for international children, at which I was accepted in 2000 after they've seen a program on the television and decided to invite a few children from the orphanage to come and study English, and generally, it changed my life the minute I stepped through the door. So it was great, and I'm still here with them. I'm 29, and I feel they're still looking after me almost.
that balance will shift soon. It'll be you looking after them.
Well, that's what the mother say. Well, she says she hopes when she gets a bit older that I'll return the favour, which I'm sure I will.
Your turn will come.
Yes.
We're here ostensibly to talk about the film, but we can't talk about the film and leave out you and your story and your background here. So maybe start there. Is that okay?
Yes.
You were very poorly when you were born 29 years ago.
Yes. When I was born in 1985, I was diagnosed with hydrocephalus, which is water on the brain, and doctors and nurses, as well as staff of the orphanage, thought I will never be a normal child and recover. So I was put into a special needs orphanage just outside the capital of Bosnia, Sarajevo. And I stayed there for a good few years. I remember wearing a helmet and bandages and whatnot just to protect from any impact to my head, which could be, deadly. I suppose that's what I was told. And then I was there for a few years, and I started becoming a normal child, running around, walking, and generally, almost, the staff say when we were there to shoot the film, they say, you become a child to a point where we thought you are not meant to be here. Even though the social services were against you leaving, we petitioned that you must move into a normal orphanage. I mean, back then, normal, they say. I mean, no orphanage is normal, but at least they wanted me to get, be with normal children and just grow up as a normal child. So it was very tough going through all of that, because you kept moving from one place to the other. It was never one home, one family. It was always, you're not fit for this orphanage, you must move on, and so on. So when I lived in orphanage in Zenica, that's really when I kind of experienced a lot of problems by being bullied and beaten, and generally just not being looked after. Then I decided, as I was 7 or 8 years old, decided to escape the orphanage, and that was the beginning of the war as well in the Balkans, the big horrible war, and I didn't care really about the shelling and grenades and snipers. I just thought, I don't want to be in the orphanage.
You ran away, did you?
So I ran away from the orphanage at the age of 7 on the streets. I remember knocking from door to door asking for some food from people, but I didn't realize it was a struggle for food everywhere. I just kind of wanted to be away from the orphanage. So I said to other 2 kids, I said, whatever happens, if police catches us, do not say where we've come from. Just invent anything, just don't say anything. So then we lived on the streets for a couple of weeks, after which we were then picked up by the police force and put into a temporary family. And then they sent us to Sarajevo, thinking that we've come from that big city. And we just followed the train tracks, and it led us to, another town away from the orphanage. We just wanted to be as far as possible from it.
So this was all tied up in the confusion of war.
It was all
so in many ways, the normal questions about 7-year-old children being by themselves on the streets probably weren't being asked at that time, because for everyone it was a struggle. It
was a struggle for everybody, but for me, you don't think about such things. You just think, to survive and have a better life. And I always wanted to have a better life. I didn't want to live in an orphanage. And I don't think the other kids that ran away, the other 2 that ran away, of which one returned because he was just scared that he'll get beaten, because that's what happens. You get caught, put back, and then you just get punishment for it. So then once the police sent us on the bus to Sarajevo, then we were captured by the Serbian army on the bus. And I think because of my name and the name of the other kid, we were okay, because my name, it belongs to Orthodox religion, so to speak, and that's the Serbian army as well. They were mostly Orthodox. And I went through, but I had no idea my happiness of just getting away from the orphanage that I was at. I was getting into a city which was shelled 24/7.
You had no idea
clue
what you were getting yourself into.
I had no clue. I mean, I what do I know? What does a 7-year-old know? Even now, I mean, nowadays they're a bit more, advanced and so on. But for me, it was a big challenge. But I suppose I must have thought back then I'd rather, dodge the bullets and grenades than be in an orphanage, because really it wasn't a place, and it's not a place for a child to grow up in, and I did not want to be there. People will remember in the late 1980s the fall of the former Soviet republics. Yugoslavia, of course, tied into it. Romania, that fell at the time as well. And against the background of the politics and the conflicts that were going on, were those awful pictures. I remember the pictures that come out of Romania at the time of orphanages and institutions and children who were treated most awfully. Was that your story too? I think it wasn't as bad as that, but it was in the range of bad bullying and beating. You know, I certainly wasn't tied to a bed, but then I was actually, I was having, cigarette butts, put into my skin, and hot forks being warmed up as a kind of a joke, or God knows what it was. Or even if I report it to the director that I'm being bullied, she then tells off the older kids, and then that's even worse for me. So, but it does happen.
This was at the hands of other children, not necessarily those in
not
the
staff, not the staff. It's the children. But then again, if the staff is trained and are actually there for the children, they wouldn't allow such things to happen. Unfortunately, they wouldn't allow me as a 7-year-old to share a room with somebody who's 18. That doesn't make sense, but to them that's normal. Just cram as many kids in a room as possible. And that's why I thought I always wanted to be different than anybody else from the orphanage. You
find yourself in Sarajevo.
Yes.
Arguably, at the time, not the safest place in the world to be. But did it offer a comfort of sorts? Did you feel that being in the capital, as ludicrous as it may sound, was a positive thing? It was a good thing. You were going places, to use your own words before?
Yes, I mean, I was free. I was free in the city of, which was actually blocked off from going in and out. I was free as a kid in that city, and it made me happy. I didn't have to worry, look over my shoulder where the next bully is going to come from or whatever. I just wanted to be, myself, different, and just have a better life. And then we were unfortunately put into another orphanage for delinquents, children with criminal records, so to speak. And I was put in there. I didn't do anything of criminally to be there. So I was there as well. And then you also experience bad things as well. And then the social services, after a couple of months, moved me into Bjelave orphanage, which is the orphanage on which Welcome to Sarajevo, film by Michael Nicholson, I'm sure your listeners have heard of, has been made upon. So the story comes from the orphanage, Ljubica Ivezic, and I was put there, and my life changed, in a good way. I was being actually taken care of by kids like Amin and others who were there to protect me, so to speak, and things moved on finally better. Even though it was an orphanage, but I wasn't bullied. I wasn't in trouble or anything. But then of course we had to steal and do things that children shouldn't be doing, but we only had to do it because all the staff were sent to the front line to defend the city, and we kids were left to defend for ourselves.
This was in against the context of war and conflict.
It was, yes. Yeah. And unfortunately, I feel proud with it's very difficult to explain everything in such a short space of time, because I've been through it a lot, but I hope your listeners can get the sense of what kind of journey I went through as a 7 or 8 year old.
I'm absolutely sure they are, and very powerfully so as well. Yeah. You were 13 when you were adopted by your now adoptive mother,
yes.
And you came to the UK, and I know you've lived in Wales in your time as well, and you came to Cambridge in 2009.
Yes. Had
you always an interest in film, in moving pictures and cinematography?
Well, as a 12 or 13 year old, a director, Chris Leslie, who also happens to be listening to this show, is decided to make a film, who I made this film with. He came to Sarajevo through Hope and Homes for Children to teach us photography, and I was one of the kids who was part of the workshop. And I remember him, coming to the place, and I was thinking, what's he doing? Is he mad? Why does somebody want to stay here and teach us to do something with ourselves? So from that moment, my interest in actually wanting to do something in life with myself has become, to want to love photography, and then it moved into film from there. I mean, I tend to say I do photography for my heart now, and film as well for my heart, but also for living, so to speak. And I want to make a career out of it. So yes, as of age of 13, thanks to his input and knowledge I've gained, I'm stuck now making films and doing photography.
Do you see yourself as a storyteller, as perhaps reflecting that conflict and reflecting that war in a very personal way?
I wish I could say that I'm a storyteller, but I think I suppose with my personal story there's so much, and I think it's you've got to have someone to step in and kind of put the story apart and just get the best bits, and that's what Chris has managed to do in the edit, get the important parts, because I would kind of want to have everything in there, and it would end up being a series of films. So when I do other films that are not part of my life story, then yes, I would say that I have to be a storyteller as well, because you kind of have to make sure that you get the best out of a person or people that you're doing a film on. But when it comes to my story, I believe it is very difficult to talk about it, because A, it's very emotional, and B, can be a bit distressing to me to rewind the film back, because I've kind of moved on from that life.
It's a dreadful paradox, isn't it, that some of the best films made have been about war and conflict and difficulty and fighting and freedom and all of those things. It's a dreadful paradox, isn't it?
It is.
That it does make good film.
It does, and I think it's important, because it's important that as many films are made about it, to raise the awareness of what actually. I mean, it's all good seeing the news and reading about it, and you kind of forget about it. But if you watch a film, you can then generally transfer that misery and suffering and everything that goes with children, especially children growing up in the war. I mean, we see Syria now on TV, and it very well reminds me of the Balkans in the 90s.
Does that feel ever present now?
Yes, and it's almost like it's happening on your doorstep, and nothing's being. It's exactly what's happened with Bosnia before the international community has moved in to stop the killing.
And there's the fear, isn't there, that something similar may happen in Ukraine as well.
Exactly. I mean, it's a fear of it happening again in my home country. It's not just because the war ended doesn't mean all the trouble have been wiped away with it. I mean, I'd say I personally had a happier life during the war, because you knew what you were standing on. While now in the Balkans, there's a lot of problems, and a lot of tourists see the pretty picture of Sarajevo, but they actually don't know that there are a lot of problems in the city, and they're all because of the war, all because of the separation of different nationalities like the Serbians and Bosnians and Croats, and splitting the country into three, and not a lot of people can understand that. And it's unfortunately, that such a beautiful country is divided like that, and that amazing people of the Balkans have to live with it.
In Finding Family, the film that you are here to talk about today as well, Oggi, you address this interesting paradox, to use that word again, about finding family, the family who left you in that hospital originally when you were a baby, when you were a very sick baby, and the possibility that their lives, as they lived it, as you were growing up, may have collided with you in the most awful way. They may indeed be the very people who would have been taking pot shots at you when you were on the streets of Sarajevo.
Yes.
You explore this in the film, don't you?
Yes. It was a great shock to me.
This is not Long Lost Families here, is it, at all?
No.
This is not In Search of the Happy Ending and reconciliation, is it?
No. I mean, the film was basically to kind of find my, learn about the people who have left me behind, not to blame them or point fingers or anything. It's just to actually get to know them and hopefully keep in touch and whatnot. Because, I mean, I have a family in Cambridge, and I'm very happy with that, and I can't have asked for any more than that. So it was really shocking for me and Chris to find out, especially for me, because I lived in the city, but Chris was very much connected with the city, whether directly or indirectly through Open Homes. it was very difficult to find out that my uncle was on the hills shelling the orphanage I was living in. And when I showed him the pictures of the city and the areas of Sarajevo, and said, do you recognize any of these places? And he was like, very happily, very proudly, yep, I remember we were, bombarding that part of the town.
They speak with pride, do they?
They are very proud of what they did, because they believe they defended their name, their background, their religion. But at the end of the day, I'm thinking, well, you carry a Bosnian passport. You were born in Bosnia. You were bred in Bosnia. So why have you decided to kill your neighbours? Why are you deciding to? You could have easily stayed away from the army as a whole. Maybe it sounds sounds easier than it is to say that, but I'm thinking he could have defended his village rather than turn and shoot onto his fellow Bosnians. And now he lives in the city. He can't do anything without. He can't get a birth certificate without going to Sarajevo to get it issued. And you're thinking, you shelled that same building where all the records of children and people that live in Bosnia are kept, and now you are connected to having to go back because you have no choice. And it was really, that was for me more shocking to find out that he could be like that against myself. He says that I'm converted Bosnian Muslim, and I'm thinking, I don't follow religion. Does
he say that in a very accusatory way?
Yes,
in a very derogatory way.
Well, he says it very, very, in a very negative way on film, that I was kind of brainwashed into becoming a good Bosnian and talk negatively of, Serbians and Croats and whatnot, which is not true, because at the end of the day, I think we could all live like a happy nation, like we used to live. But people
as you said, it all runs deep, doesn't it?
Exactly.
It all runs deep, and through the generations increasingly as well.
And the annoying thing was that I didn't come to question what he has done. I came to meet my mother.
Yes.
That it was nothing to do about the war. But
and if we haven't made that clear, you have actually met your birth family, haven't you? Finally,
yes. It was we went on a journey in June of 2012, Chris and I, with a camera and donations of good people to help us make the film, and we didn't plan anything. We went in blindfolded. Mother said she doesn't want to meet us, yet still we were on that flight to go and meet her, and she was like, I'm not coming. I don't want to meet you. Why do I have to meet you? And so on and so forth.
How, in and amongst all of the conflict and all of the how torn apart the country was, you were still able to find a paper trail to your birth family, were you?
Well, the good thing is that Bosnian media can be quite helpful sometimes, believe it or not.
And we are in that Twitter generation,
yes.
aren't we?
Well, so I've written to a lady who is doing exactly what you're doing at Cambridge and asked, could you please put out a announcement to say that I'm looking for my mother, and therefore a part of Tomic's family, kind of who knew them, gave me leads, which led to another lead, and so on and so forth. And then a Skype call happened, and there it was. But I didn't speak to my mother. I didn't speak to my mother until the minute she arrived. I did, to do the film. So nothing was arranged. So whatever is seen on the film of Finding Family is actually as it happened. There was no plan. There was no talk how it's going to happen. Camera was just rolling. I had to tell Chris, I had to tell him what time it is, because he doesn't speak Bosnian. He doesn't know the language at all, apart from few words to say. So I'd say to him, what time is it in English, so he knows start rolling. Because if I say to him start filming, then things change, if you know what I mean. So he did really well in that, but then he didn't have a clue what was being said for the entire making of the film. So it was very, very difficult making of the film, but I feel extremely proud that it was done, and I hope listeners will like what they see on I don't know if I can say the website where they can, which is finding-family.co.uk. So that's finding-family.co.uk. They can see the trailer Unfortunately, the film is not in full on the website because we are still putting it through festivals and so on. So it's got to stay that way.
But I treat it like any other film, haven't
Yes.
The website is finding-family.co.uk, and I know that you support, through all of this, the charity Hope and Homes as well, hopeandhomes.org, which is another great website for anybody who's been so taken and engaged by your story this afternoon, Oggi, who perhaps wants to read a little bit more, perhaps motivated to help children in Bosnia and elsewhere who are still being treated in orphanages, still being looked after in orphanages as well. Will you stay in touch with us, please?
Of course.
And when do you find out about the Scottish BAFTA?
It'll happen on 25th of March, which is next week, in Glasgow, and hopefully, it'll be great to win it and take it home, really. But the nomination is important as well, because it will be, I say it'll be for the children of Bosnia, and those children who are still in the orphanages. It is for them, and hopefully this film, Chris and I are trying to champion it out there to raise the awareness of that no child should live in an orphanage, and Hope and Homes is doing a great job in getting that message across and closing them down, which is very, very important. It's not just talk, it's actually shutting them down and moving children into families. And I love this because I know how much it means to them.
I want our next communication to be nothing but positive. I want it to be news of you scooping a Scottish BAFTA, okay?
Thank you. I hope so too.
How nice to have met you today.
Likewise, thank you.
Oggi Tomic has been telling his story and the story of Finding Family, the film, here at BBC Radio Cambridgeshire this afternoon. This is Sue Dougan. Good afternoon. We will get back to the music in a little while. Back to you. You say we play picks today, but wasn't that the most powerful conversation I think we've had on BBC Radio Cambridgeshire for such a long time?
BBC Radio Cambridgeshire.